You are listening to the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, episode 31. This week is the one where I'm going to talk all about judgment. Let's dive in. This is a podcast for overthinkers, overdoers, and overachievers who are tired of feeling overanxious and just want to feel better. I'm your host, certified life coach, Jackie DeGrenis. Hey there, and welcome back. So this week, I wanted to talk about something that's been weighing very heavily on my mind for the last few weeks. As a coach, one of the things that we're supposed to do is listen to our clients without judgment. And our jobs are to listen to people's fears and regrets, insecurities, mistakes, and help clients then set goals and achieve them by letting go of whatever baggage came before their fears and their mistakes and all of the things. And not unlike a therapist or a priest or rabbi or a best friend, the coaching space with a client is a safe place. And it's one in which we actively listen, ask questions, and help our clients find answers, solutions, or even just a new way of thinking about problems, patterns, or issues that are current in their lives. Now, this is something I had to be trained to learn and do. Not so much the listening part, but really holding space and remaining neutral and curious and learning to ask the most helpful questions while providing guidance. And it takes time and practice to practice non-judgment, creating that safe container for people to explore all of these thoughts and feelings. But like most people, when I step out of my professional role, I still struggle to hold myself to that same standard of non-judgment. Now look, judgment takes many names. Sometimes it's called gossip. Sometimes it's a lack of compassion. Sometimes it's a lack of sympathy or empathy. Just sometimes it's just old-fashioned judgment. Things like, can you believe he said that? Or can you believe she did that? Or can you believe they wore that? Or can you believe they got that job? What does he see in her? What does she see in him? I don't think she's that great, etc., etc. And look, we all have so many opinions about so many different circumstances, whether it's friends, families, neighbors, strangers, nemesises, bosses, colleagues. It's just natural to have a lot of opinions about a lot of different things. And the interesting thing is, as mothers, we're always telling our teenage daughters not to pay attention or internalize the mean girl comments at school. We remind them that their judgment is often rooted in jealousy and insecurities of their own. And yet, as adults, we don't recognize our own hypocrisy when we judge others. And I believe the stress of a 2-year pandemic created like a whole new level of judgment around the world. Our country became so divided over the last 2 years on so many subjects, just being isolated from family and friends and having conflicting news reports from everything from politics to vaccines and mask mandates and just so many things. But it goes beyond just the 2 years that we've been locked up in our houses because of the pandemic. Judgment of others when someone is doing something that triggers you can happen in every facet of life. And especially on even personal issues. It's just so easy to pass judgment on someone who might be having an affair or going through a bitter divorce. Or you have that friend who drinks too much but won't acknowledge there's a problem. Or someone might be consistently rude to you or make you feel marginalized. Or sometimes we judge those we're envious of. The people who have good fortune, whether it's wealth or great jobs or tons of friends or they're beautiful or whatever it is. So there's opportunity to judge at every turn on people we look down upon and on those that we're jealous of. But here's the thing. The results are all the same. It's all judgment. And while we think we might be helping manage our feelings and our emotions, whether that's fears or hurt feelings, there is research that shows that being judgmental of others can negatively affect our own self-esteem more than any other outside force. So the theory is that while you're critiquing others, you're actually critiquing yourself. And here's the kicker. The more you judge others, the more you judge yourself. And by constantly seeing the bad in others or the judgment in others, we're training our brains to find the bad in everything. So when I was under a lot of stress in my old career, I would often be very judgmental of my difficult bosses or my very difficult producers. And I thought that if I could just unburden my thoughts and fears and feelings, I would feel better. But the more I judged them, the more stress-related symptoms I would experience, like stiff necks and headaches, stomach aches. My throat would tighten, and I would often feel short of breath. The gossip or the judgment was not hurting my difficult boss. It was causing me to feel more discomfort in my body, because judgment leads to an increase in stress. And stress can weaken the immune system, which causes, as you know, a whole host of things, ranging from high blood pressure to fatigue, depression, anxiety, and in some very rare cases, stress can even cause a stroke. So what we can learn is that our judgments mostly have to do with us, not the people we judge. And the same is true when others judge us. In most cases, we judge others in order to feel better about ourselves, because we're either lacking self-acceptance or self-love, or we're afraid of something. Now, is all judgment bad? Absolutely not. Being judgmental is an essential survival trait to our own species. We need to be able to distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong, and people who should or shouldn't qualify as our friends or partners. It's one of those things we've been hardwired to do, and it's an important trait. The problem is, it's when it gets out of control. It's when we secretly judge friends, acquaintances, relatives, colleagues, random people at the grocery store, and so on. Because judging becomes addictive, and it basically just becomes a bad habit. So not only does judging people often lead to gossip, and we know gossip can lead to rumors and spreading rumors and things getting out of control, but more importantly, it creates stress in our own bodies, and it has another side effect. Others may start to see you as negative, or they might start fearing that you're judging them too if you're very busy judging everybody around them. And then people stop trusting you. And then that can harm the healthy relationships that you do have. And it's interesting, my father was very rarely critical of people. I can only think of maybe a handful of people in his whole life that he didn't really care for. He always saw the good in most people, or he looked for the good in most people. And as a result, he had a million friends and people just adored him. And I don't think this was even conscious on his part. I think he was just wired that way. He genuinely loved people, and he was always eager to get to know someone. And I think it made people feel important and valued. And subsequently, it made people like him back. So it was like this loop of just good nature, because he was genuinely curious about people and genuinely found something likable about everybody. So let me be crystal clear here. No one is saying that you have to like everyone or be friends with everyone. Your time is precious, and by no means should you let toxic people take up space in your life. But by the same token, if you can practice compassion in lieu of judgment with those who trigger you or challenge you in some way, you might feel that you feel freer. And sometimes it's as simple as just saying hello, a friendly smile, or waving to acknowledge somebody. It can reduce the fear and the tension around someone you have maybe previously judged, or perhaps maybe who's been judgmental of you. Just recently, I have re-engaged with 4 or 5 old acquaintances that I had lost touch with. I had lost touch with them because of my own judgment of them having different political opinions, and also some negative things that I had heard about them from the gossip mill, which I really had no business indulging in because I didn't know those things about them. And I decided to simply just be friendly to them again and neutral, with no attachment to any other outcome. Not that we would be good friends, not that we would be intimate, but just to not look at them with judgment and not to avoid them when I saw them, at the store or at a community event. And you know what I found? It was really lovely. It was really nice to get reacquainted. It was really nice to chat with them. And I think it was nice for them too. But I realized it was my judgment and my thoughts that was creating that awkwardness at parties or community gatherings. And it really had very little to do with them. So I was hurting myself by being judgmental or allowing gossip to make me judgmental. So in all of these cases, it was well received. And like I said, I have these newfound acquaintanceships with them again, and I notice I just feel better. So once again, like everything I talk about on this podcast, it's not all or nothing. And it's not about being perfect. And I'm never going to be perfect on this subject. It is just about a practice. And it's not a one-size-fits-all model. Every situation, every person, every circumstance will be different. But when we clean up our side of the street in terms of our own insecurities, doubts, or fears, sometimes we're more open to letting others into our space. And I love what Dr. Wayne Dyer said about this in one of his books. When you judge another, you do not define them, you define yourself. So thinking of being less judgmental as an act of compassion or even self-compassion might just give you a new friend, or reunite you with an old friend, or give you a new outlook on an otherwise uncomfortable chance encounter. So once again, I want to thank you for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Overthinker's Guide to Joy. If you're enjoying these episodes, please subscribe or follow this podcast so you can always be in the know when the next episode drops. If you would like to learn more about working with me as a coach, you can connect with me through my website at jackiedegrenis.com. That's JACKIEDECRINIS.com.